Hello everyone, Ace here, and today I've decided to have yet another look at some video game history, and in the process answer the question, what exactly made Star Wars TIE Fighter great? First released all the way back in 1994 as the second entry in the Star Wars X-Wing series, and often called one of the greatest games in that entire legendary series, with its main competition for that honor being Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. Star Wars X-Wing TIE Fighter is also often listed as one of the greatest Star Wars games of all time, as well as one of the greatest spaceflight sims of all time to boot. Needless to say, this is a game with a particularly legendary reputation. So to understand why all of this is the case, let's talk about what exactly made the game great. And perhaps the first thing to note is, of course, the original Star Wars X-Wing, a great game in its own right that laid the foundation for what ultimately became Star Wars TIE Fighter. Because unsurprisingly, Totally Games took what worked from Star Wars X-Wing and expanded upon it, as well as, of course, refined what could be improved. All of this is to say, of course, that TIE Fighter ended up being a more refined game in comparison to the original X-Wing. So that's the first thing that made the game great. The second thing, however, that made the game great was the fact that this was the first Star Wars game ever to be told from the perspective of the Galactic Empire. This was a golden opportunity for the developers to greatly expand upon the lore of the Empire itself. And of course, this was a task that Totally Games performed extremely well. The writing and game progression manages to detail quite nicely the infighting that was going on within the Galactic Empire itself, which of course weakened the strength of the Empire, helping give the Rebel Alliance a very real fighting chance. Of course, this theme was present all the way back in the original trilogy. However, TIE Fighter expanded upon it in ways that the original trilogy didn't. From traders in the Imperial military actively giving supplies to the rebels, all the way to a coup attempt that ended up capturing the Emperor briefly. And unlike Disney, Totally Games was fully capable of adding to the lore of Star Wars without damaging what was already there. Speaking of which, it's also worth noting that Star Wars TIE Fighter further added to the lore of Star Wars by introducing two fan favorites within the arsenal of the Galactic Empire, namely the TIE Avenger and the TIE Defender, both being excellent starfighters that, while expensive, fulfilled roles that the Empire desperately needed fulfilled. So yes, it's quite clear that the fact that this game was the first to tell the story of Star Wars from the perspective of the Galactic Empire, as well as the aforementioned expansions to the lore of Star Wars, absolutely helped make this game great. But now I believe is the perfect time to move on to one additional factor that also helped make the game great: the music. Now, of course, most people are well aware of the fact that most Star Wars games simply use the music from John Williams verbatim, which is fair enough, as after all, the John Williams score is absolutely legendary for very good reason. However, there are a few Star Wars games that will try to do something different and have their own unique soundtracks. Usually in those cases, the music will be inspired by John Williams' score, but will in fact still be very much its own thing. I bring this up because Star Wars TIE Fighter is one such example, and not only that, but also one of the earlier examples of this as well. So the fact that the music ends up being as good as it is most certainly praiseworthy. With all of this in mind, this has been Ace, and I hope you'll agree when I say that Star Wars TIE Fighter is great.